Hey guys, I am excited to share with you this week's video, which is going to be a process from start to finish of my husband and I processing a Sitka blacktail deer caught here locally in Sitka, Alaska. I hope you enjoy the video.
Okay, so step one, while we've got the deer hung up in the garage, is to remove all of the hide. So my husband got started on this while I prepped our kitchen to process all of the meat, which is a little bit of a messy project. He started off at the legs hanging up above and then worked his way all the way down, and at this point I joined him. Um, Here I'm just got some damp paper towel and I'm basically just removing any bits of hair or dirt or anything that I see that would contaminate the meat, and we wouldn't want to have that in our ground venison. We ended up leaving this deer hung for 2 or 3 days just out of convenience. Sometimes we process it right away, sometimes we let it sit for just a day or a night, and this time I think we ended up letting it sit for almost 2.5 days in the garage. Luckily, our garage stays pretty nice and cool, and the temperatures at the time were pretty mild. So then we started off working with the meat and pulling it all the way down the legs. We've got some different bins down below, and we're basically going through and getting any scraps of meat that look good, putting them in the pile to grind. And then my husband here started working on the back straps, which are the only pieces of this deer actually that we decided to keep. Sometimes we keep a full leg or bits and pieces for a roast. As we got down to the rib cage, we worked through and pulled off any remaining rib meat that we could get through, all the way down and through the muscles in the neck. Okay, so once we got all of the meat pulled off of the deer, we piled it all into a big silver bowl, as you can see over there, and then we headed into the house to start processing. So my husband is starting to clean up the meat, and I am starting to work on packaging up the backstrap, which, like I said, is the only meat that we decided to keep that we were not going to grind. That I weighed it out and portioned it so that it was approximately 3 different servings, which were about 1.25 pounds or so per package. So one piece of backstrap for my husband and one for me, and that will be 3 meals. So it's a pretty decent sized backstrap actually. After packaging the backstrap, now the rest of this meat is just going to be ground up. So we did about 10 pounds of it that was just all venison with nothing else added. And so we just basically portioned it up into tiny little pieces, and then we run it through my grinder. The grinder that we have is a stainless steel attachment for the KitchenAid mixer that you can see in the back there. And we got this actually as a wedding gift from my aunt. We'd been wanting a grinder for a while. Previously, we had just been bringing it to the local butcher, and he would grind it for us. It's a lot more convenient to be able to do it at our house. However, it does go a little bit slower, so if you had to process multiple deer, I would recommend, upgrading to just a entire machine that just does grinding versus getting an attachment for a KitchenAid. But for the purposes of processing only one deer, this works great. We do about one deer in about 2.5 hours with the system that we've kind of got laid out here. So as you can see, I'm just feeding little pieces of meat into the grinder. And then we ended up doing, after the first 10 pounds, we did about 20 pounds of the rest of the meat that was ground up, and we added some beef fat. We like to use that because it adds a little bit of flavor, and we've previously used pork fat as well. You can use any fat. You just go to the local butcher and ask them for however much fat you want. So we grabbed some, and then we portioned it out to be about 12%. Once the meat is all ground up, then we go into packaging. So I weigh out just over 1 pound, about 1 pound to 1 pound 3 ounces, something like that. And I kind of ball it up into little balls, and then I just keep weighing that out and portioning it out. I did about 5 or 6 pounds at a time. We like to use the Glad press and seal. We've used a couple different variations of this type of material, but I basically just rip off a little square of it, I put it on the table, and then I package it up and kind of patty it so it's in a nice little rectangle, pat it all together. I lay the sticky side up, I like to keep one glove on so that I can touch the meat with that one, and then keep one hand clean so that I don't have meat all over the packaging of the item. And I just like to do the rectangles because I think that it sits a lot flatter and saves a lot more space versus doing like a round or a mounded, ball of ground venison. Then we grab our freezer paper. Freezer paper is different from butcher paper, so just keep that in mind if you go to the store to purchase this. You do want freezer paper. Since using freezer paper and the press and seal, we have not had any issues with any packages of ours being freezer burnt. We really love it, and it might take a little bit more time than vacuum sealing, which would be an alternative option, but it seems to work really well for us, and we've kind of got our system down now, so we know exactly what to do. As I go through here, I'm just basically ripping off a square. It doesn't have to be perfect, folding it all the way through. And then the last step is just labeling it all. So I typically write exactly what it is, the date, so I do the month and the year. I do approximately what the weight is, which I just write 1 pound, but really it's 1 pound, 2 or 3 ounces. And then I'm writing the percent fat. And for the ones that I did with just venison, I wrote plain ground venison on them without a percentage of fat. And then I just add some packaging tape. Like I said, this deer took us about 2.5 hours from start to finish, and that was from actually skinning the deer in the garage all the way through cleanup and putting away all the stuff in the freezer. I think we ended up with just over 33 pounds, and I was looking at the statistics for black-tailed deer, and it seems like that would be a pretty average amount. My husband and I have done this project together quite a few times now, so we definitely kind of have our routine down. He has his things that he does, and I have my things that I do. I like to do all of the packaging and labeling. I like to have a good consistent packaging so that when I go into the freezer to pull something out, I know exactly what it is. Here is a final picture of all the meat. Like I said, we ended up with just about 33 pounds or so. So we've got our venison backstrap, our 3 packages of that. We've got about 10 or 11 pounds of plain ground venison in 1 pound portions. And then the rest of it is the ground venison that we added some beef fat to. And so it's approximately about 12% fat.
All right, I hope you enjoyed the video of my husband and I processing that Sitka blacktail deer. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you later.